What was that, James?
I was just gonna say it's kind of quiet today.
Yeah. All right. Hello everybody, and welcome to the December 10th, 2024 iteration of the Kubernetes SIG-windows community meeting. As always, these meetings are recorded and uploaded to YouTube, so be sure to adhere to the CNCF Code of Conduct. All right. So announcements. I think the biggest announcement is that the 132 release is scheduled for later tonight, within the next 24 hours, depending on the time zone. So that'll be exciting. I think we've got a couple of new enhancements and things with that. Next, does anybody have anything else they want to announce? I think after this, it's going to be a little bit slow until the new year, probably, in Kubernetes land. But all right. Next, we usually give some space if there's anybody who wants or to welcome new contributors. If there's anybody who's new to the call and wants to either introduce themselves or give a little introduction, we'll pause for a minute to do that. But if not, we can continue the meeting. Okay, let's get started with the agenda then. The first thing on the agenda is something that I added. This kind of came up last week, and there's some interesting behaviors that came with Golang 123 and Windows. I think that there's an issue here. So what happened was in Golang 123, there's a couple of new they changed they changed the default behaviors for both how lstat works and a couple other functions like that in the OS package, as well as how eval symlinks about how the calls that evaluate full paths work, whether or not those calls should follow symlinks in a couple of different instances. There's and this was found to have caused some issues, not in the kubelet directly. Well, I think one of them did, but in some of the CSI drivers, more specifically. And so I think when some of these behaviors were changed in the kubelet, it caused issues with how the gRPC kind of communications happened over with the CSI, the container storage interface volumes. So in 123, near late last week, Jordan Liggett put in some changes to I think so the release is going to stay on Golang 123, but Golang has some switches to toggle this at both there's some environment variables that you can set that will revert the behavior back to the 122 behavior, which was known good for Kubernetes, at least in terms of all of the testing was done. The interesting and pleasantly surprising thing about the way that this was done in the OS package was you can specify a default behavior for this in the Go-mod file for when everything's running, but users can also override these and specify a new behaviors at runtime via some environment configs. I think that there's some documentation in one of these issues. I'm not going to follow all of this here too. So this is mostly just an FYI of what's happening, and if anybody's noticed any issues with Golang 122 to 123 transition for Windows applications, this could be related. So I think in the 132 release, which is coming out today, everything should be by default reverted back to the Golang 122 behavior running Golang 123. And there was an ask from Jordan and some other folks in Kubernetes in the 133 release, to SIG-windows and SIG-storage take a look at this and see, just kind of figure out what we can do. Because I do believe that a lot of the behaviors that were put into the kubelet were workarounds because there was the way the OS package was handling the LStat with like how things like how Unix domain sockets were being reported as files and things were not desirable. So there were some workarounds that were put in, and it looks like in Golang 123 there was some work done to kind of fix that, but the workarounds that we had in code didn't really play nicely with those two. So it's kind of yeah, I think I'm done rambling now. Does anybody have any questions about this or comments? It's good to see that this is coming in. It's kind of not good that we didn't catch this until after RCs were already cut. Um, but I think that's just because the testing is testing either like last like already released versions of either the kubelet or like so the tests that were testing Kubernetes were testing RC versions of the kubelet and older releases of the CSI drivers, and the CSI code was testing development versions of the CSI driver with the last known kubelet. So there's kind of this the testing matrix can get kind of big and unwieldy. Yep, James, go ahead.
Do we know when the Golang version was bumped? Was that done prior to like code freeze, or was that done after code freeze and things?
I don't remember. I think it was I believe it was done before the betas, before the beta releases for this release. So yeah, it wasn't, it took a little bit to find this issue.
Yeah, and this is something that we'll need to address in 133.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the ask is to reevaluate all of the workarounds, like potentially remove the workarounds that were in place to work around the undesirable behavior, and then we can not set the feature or like the environment variables to revert the behavior back to 123, and hopefully everything will just work.
Yeah, and I think there was early on in the 132 release cycle, somebody submitted a PR because they were expecting this fixed in upstream Golang, and we had to revert that PR. So, like, I know there's been a few hiccups around this. So, um,
Yeah, yeah. I think we'll have to probably reintroduce that PR at the same time that we unset some of these feature flags from which one? From the Go module. So yeah, specifically here's there's the linked pull request here, and what this does is this just sets um these Go debug flags in a bunch of different Go mod files. So I didn't realize that this was that you could control this here too. So this is probably what we'll need to do. All right, yeah. If anybody has any questions, I think there's a couple Slack discussions around this in Slack too, so we can talk about that there. Next, Windows Node EE test work. Yeah, take it away, young lady.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Let me share my screen.
Okay, you're kind of quiet. I heard you, but it sounded very muffled for me.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, can
How
you
about it
share?
now?
Yeah, okay. You should be able to share your screen now. Let me stop sharing.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
No, I can't. I'm looking at the settings here. I can share. Okay, can you try again? I set it so all participants can share.
Okay. How about now?
Yep, I see a screen with VS Code.
Okay. Yeah.
and if you could just make the text just a touch bigger
Pardon me.
just enlarge the text a little bit. It's a little small for,
Which part you mean?
If you hit Control plus, that'll make it a little
Okay.
bigger, just once or twice. Yeah, there you go. That's good enough. Yeah.
Get more PR. Can you also see this PR part?
Yep.
Okay. So for the Windows node E2E test, this is based on the James prototype, and James also had me to troubleshoot my environment to set things up correctly. So this is based on his prototype. So I have separated the work into three parts. For first part, so I like to follow the E2E test, which means we use the same test suite, but separate Windows related test in its own package and direct subdirectory. So move all the Windows related part into the Windows directory and also into a package of itself. And also try to reuse the existing testing code as much as possible, but separate the Windows logic, which are different with Linux ones, into different files, which will be marked with either Windows or Linux. And yeah, for Node E2E test, basically it will start local etcd API server, and then also start Kubernetes, and then run the test against Kubernetes. So it does not need a cluster, but just a running machine which has Kubernetes and API server running. Of course, it will also have container runtime running, which is container D. Node test, for my part, I focus on the local test only. For Linux, it supports those local tests and also remote tests, which means for the remote test, it means you can start a VM and copy all the test code to run on the remote VM, but you somehow get the test result back to your machine, running machine. So for the Windows node, I focus on the local test in this PR. For the local, so basically the test, when the test execute will run, it will first start API server and then start the Kubernetes. And also, so when the test finish or exited, it will need to stop the API server and also the Kubernetes as well. So that part, Windows is quite different with Linux. For example, for the Kubernetes start, Linux will use systemd. For Windows, in my PR here, I'm trying to start Kubernetes as a Windows service by starting it with the service sa.exe. And for the process monitoring for the API server, for example, in Linux part, it has a feature of p that signal. It's an attribute. So when you specify a command line, you can specify this attribute. So when parent process exited, it will kill its child processes. But for Windows, we do not have that system attribute for a command. And so I use also based on the idea of James, in his prototype, I created the Windows object when we start the test executable and add the child process to the Windows object. So when the parent process exited and the Windows object got closed, all the child process being part of the job project will be terminated as well. So yeah, that's first part I'm doing mostly. And so for the second part, basically is refactoring work. So for the existing E2E test, all the tests and hyper functions are in the same package, which is E2E node. In order to add Windows test, we might need to use the same function provided by some hyper functions, and some of the hyper functions are even being in specific test cases. So in order to be used by Windows package, I will need to separate the hyper function into a different package other than E2E. Otherwise, the subdirectory subpackage will not be able to reference the E2E package because it will be a static reference, sample reference. So this part basically is to separate the functions from hyper functions and make it to be usable by both Windows and Linux, and maybe other ones when we add it in the future. This is the second part. For the third part, I'm trying to add specific E2E test, Windows E2E node test case for node shutdown. So this is for Windows shutdown event or pre-shutdown event. It is a system event. We cannot send this event from our code. So in order to test the logic, but we can send customer code, and we can change the service to behave the same we defined customer code. So that's what I did here. So define, for example, define a pre-shutdown simulated code, and in the service update the service logic when we receive the same simulation code, we behave the same as receiving the system pre-shutdown. So in this way, we can somehow test trying to send a similar pre-shutdown event without actually shut down the node. Because if we shut down, unlike the E2E test, which we target a cluster, for the node level test, if we shut down the node, shut down the machines we are running, the test executable will be shut down as well. It cannot be continue run after reboot. So, but by using this workaround, we can send a pre-shutdown equivalent event without actually shut down the machine. And also, actually, for the processing of a pre-shutdown event, when the shutdown logic finish running, actually, the node state may not be synced to the latest one because it's running as a different thread. The node state synced to the API server. So in the service logic here, when we finish the shutdown, we cannot just exit it. Otherwise, because there are still threads running to sync the pod status. In this way, the Kubernetes will be state on the stop pending service. The Kubernetes service will stick at the stop pending state. In this state, if we want to shut down the service, we will need to take it. We cannot stop it, use the SA stop, but have to kill the running executables. So that's included in this PR. Yeah, let me try to Yeah, this node shutdown test, which I have moved from the E2E to the node E2E level. So let me show you. This is the file. This is the launch file used to debug. So we launched the E2E node test with some settings and with folks which is specific to shut down the windows. And this is a test file which will run the test case. So so right now, currently, if I try to, on my local machine, the Kubernetes is not running. So if I try to either get node or get pod, it will give me nothing. But yeah, let me start debugging. And then it will take a few minutes to bring up the either API servers or Kubernetes. So yeah, maybe we can talk about if I have any question, anything need to clarify, we can talk at this time while waiting for the test to be executed.
I don't think I have anything really to ask or talk about. I think it would be good to figure out how to get this running in one of the like a prow job too that we can run periodically just as a proof of concept. And even if we do that, we can start off by targeting like a different branch. It doesn't, I think we've done that before too, so I think that'd be a really good thing to do to demonstrate.
Okay. So I have a concern because for the refactoring work, it changed a lot of files. Will that be? I mean, will it get approved from SIG-node, or will that have difficulties to get approved from SIG-node?
I don't think so. I think that if like especially if we're increasing test coverage and making things more usable, that should like I think as long as there's not any controversial like behavioral changes, if it's just refactoring code, then the biggest issue with that is keeping up with potential rebases and other updates as the reviews are happening for this change. But yeah, I don't think just having a refactor that touches a lot of files in itself is gonna cause any like frictions or anything.
Okay. So Kubernetes is try to get started. Yeah. Okay. So I must sorry. This is the logging. And Kubernetes is not running, and so if we have the node ready, but we don't have any pods right now, so okay. Where is my continue file? Yeah, this we are stopped here to try to send out the channel signal, but Right now you can have, we can see we have 4 pod running, but if we send out signal after a few seconds, it will should have continued. You see, the non-critical pod get error first, and then the critical part.
Mhm.
Yeah, and if we and yeah, eventually it will succeed. Yeah, it will pass. And the kubelet will get stopped. So if we run the service, if we check the kubelet, it got stopped. Yeah, basically, yeah, that's basically the demos.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just want to call out, like, this is all running locally on your Windows 11 machine, so you can
Right.
actually like debug and interact with a kubelet, which is something that we've had a problem with from a developer standpoint. Like, hey, I want to work on this feature, I can't get this thing running. And this enables you to be able to run tests and then set breakpoints on all these different components. But you could even potentially attach the debugger to kubelet and like step through kubelet. And so there's that aspect of this, as well as some of the features that we're working on, such as the memory manager and things like that. And you just demonstrated the the node shutdown manager. They have extensive test suites inside Node EDE, which we've never historically run. And this opens the door for us to be able to, leverage those test suites. So yeah, thanks for the work here, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I know there's been a couple of different attempts to do the like a local development type of situation, and I think this is very promising. It's like doesn't have to deal with any like VM, like creating a VM to run the Linux components and stuff, so it'll significantly kind of reduce complexity, which is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think next steps are probably, I guess, Mark, do you think we should open up like or get something running similar to like we did with the unit test to demonstrate that we've got this working, or should we get a PR open?
Yeah,
and-
I think we could probably get like a periodic running or like that targets a development branch in a fork potentially, and see what that looks like to make sure like how we can run all of this and then possibly bring it to, and then open up a pull request and see what happens. At least maybe start with that, see how complicated that is, and do that too.
Cool.
Cool. I think we're over time. So James, I see you added 2 things to the agenda. Do you want to?
Yeah, we can follow up on the CI failures next week or the next time we meet. That's not something until the branch opens again.
Yep.
And then the release notes, I just want to call out they put out some release notes. I scanned them quickly. I saw a bunch of things in there. Mark, I didn't see your PR for memory manager. I saw mine for the CPU manager. So I
Okay,
might want to get that on
I'll
there.
take a look, or just like comments and we can merge them. Like just mention memory and CPU manager.
Yeah, at the same time.
Yeah.
That's all. That's
Okay.
all I have.
Yep. Thanks all. That's exciting to get more of that automated test coverage. I think that does open up a lot of like extra test coverage for free that we won't have to write once we get the ED nodes up running. So awesome. All right, I'm gonna stop the recording and everybody have a good week.